everyone. Thanks for joining the CaFÉ webinar. Today will be a fun one as I'll go over the new features the CaFÉ team has added to the site in the past year, and I'll be giving you a sneak peek of the new features that will be added in the next 12 months or so. Mostly I'll go over changes to the administrator side. I will mention a couple of items though that changed for artists, as it does, tie into your use of CaFÉ and just give you an idea of the things that we're updating from the artist point of view. The key items we'll go through today are a review of the latest new features added to CaFÉ, including a couple of our larger ones, such as the Zoom feature for jurors, improved functionality for saving the call editor, updates to the artist side, and more. Plus, I'll be sharing a preview of the upcoming new features. So I'm going to start today by talking about the latest new features that we've added to CaFÉ. This list doesn't cover every modification we've made throughout the site in the past year, but these are just some of the ones that most pertain to your use of CaFÉ and are the ones that we'd want to make sure you actually know about so that you can use them. First, in December, we added the ability for jurors to zoom in on artwork images while scoring and also enable full screen to see image details more clearly. So let me demonstrate this Zoom feature for you so you can see it in action. I'll start by logging into CaFÉ with my juror username. So this feature is only available on the scorecard side of CaFÉ. So if you want to see it for yourself with your own call, all you have to do is add yourself as a juror and you'll be able to do this. Or if you already have a juror username, you can log in with that. So go ahead and log in. Once we log in, I'm already kind of in the portal here for this one call that we have. It's our demo call. And what I'll do to bring up the scorecard is click on the number of applications. And we've got grid view set up here today, so you can kind of see the thumbnail of the images. And to show you the zoom feature, what I'm going to do is I will open up one of these I'll click on the thumbnail to open up the pop-up window of the full-size image. And you can see here now we have the zoom feature at the top where you can click in, you can click once, you can click twice, as far as it will go, and then you can click and drag your cursor on the image to, drag the view. I'm not going to click it now because it'll kind of mess up my windows, but if you can also click full screen and it'll put it into full screen on your computer. So this is really nice. You can also zoom in on your mouse scrolling thingy, so you can zoom in and out. So this is new for jurors, and this works for every image, and you can use this. Now, I'm going to talk about this kind of part of this update we made next, but you'll see that some images can zoom in more than others. Some of them you can go really far in, some of them you might not be able to actually go that far. I actually have an example here where if I click into, I think it's this one, I can scroll in a little bit on this image. You can see this is about as far as I can go. But if I open up this one, it's the same image, but a different image file size. Give me a second here for it to load. You can see on this one, I can zoom in a lot. So again, I'm going to describe this all in our next update, but just know that some jurors may be able to, jurors will be able to scroll into some images farther than others, and that just depends on the size of the image that the artist uploaded. So just note that, but you can at least scroll in a little bit, even if it's at the minimum image size. So we hope that this, improved the scoring experience for jurors so that they can, view the full screen and zoom in a little bit to see some more detail. And like I mentioned, the other thing we did in December was improve our image sizing. So what we actually did is we removed the maximum that we have. When we updated our image sizing, basically what we did is we removed this limit, this maximum image size. So nothing changed in terms of the minimum size requirements for images for CaFÉ. Images still must be a minimum of 1200 pixels on the longest edge. And then the file size still has a maximum 5 megabytes file, or 5 megabytes as a file. But in order to kind of make the requirements less restrictive, we removed this maximum size. So it used to be where if an artist uploaded an image that was larger than 1920 pixels on the longest edge, the system would actually size down to 1920. But now it will accept all sizes of images, so long as the file size is still 5 megabytes. So all that to say is CaFé's image requirements are now less restrictive. Artists can upload larger images to be able to show better detail and more clarity to the jurors. So this was a great update just to make it a little bit better for artists to present their work. With all of these image size changes that we kind of made, or making it less restrictive, made it so that we could instruct artists a little bit more to kind of encourage them to upload larger size files so that their artwork, or larger size images so that their artwork is presented better. And so in addition to this, we created a guide. It's a blog post. Guide for preparing image files for upload. So this guide is a great resource where, we kind of define some things and we list our, image requirements, but we also provided some recommended image requirements to be able to have them maximize the quality that they present their artwork with. So we kind of go through the process of what image size is, what file size is, and how to kind of optimize that. And we also provided an example of, this is the example I just showed you in the jury side, where, a smaller sized image would result in less zoom capability for jurors. So just kind of demonstrating that in this blog post. So this is available up here in our blog section of our website, callforentry.org. And so you can use this to share with your artists, and it kind of gives them an idea of how to upload some quality images. So that's a little bit about the image sizing with the Zoom feature, kind of released that all at the same time in December. The next thing we did was in January, we updated the workflow for multi-factor authentication to allow users to save a trusted device and log in without entering the MFA code for 90 days. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, multi-factor authentication is a method for logging in that adds an extra layer of security to your administrator and juror accounts. Multi-factor authentication, also known as MFA, means that you use your password when you log in, but then you also use this MFA code when you log in to be able to access your account. It's currently optional for administrators and jurors. It's not yet required. So just to kind of quickly show you what this looks like and the feature that we released, I'm actually going to log out real quick and I'll go into my administrator account. So I put in my username and password. Once I click login, I'm taken to the section where I enter my code. The code can be sent via email or via an authentication app. So I have an app on my phone that gives me a code every 30 seconds. It refreshes the code, and I can use that to log in. So once I enter the code and click submit, it would give me access. The change that we made in January made this so that you can click remember this device, so that it won't ask you for the code every single time you log in. It will remember the device you're using is trusted, and it'll only ask you for the code every 90 days. So if I click remember device and click submit, next time I log in, it won't ask me for this code. You can remember multiple devices. We just recommend that you only do it on devices that are yours and only you have access to. Don't click remember this device on computers that are shared amongst other people, just to keep that layer of security tight. And you can only remember one CaFÉ account per device. So if you have an administrator account in addition to a juror account, pick one that you want more easy access to, likely your administrator account, so that it'll remember that device. Because if you were to also try to remember the device for your juror account, it would override and then make you log in with a code on your administrator account. So only one account per device can be saved as trusted. this just makes it easier. We also made it so that the code, when you get it emailed to you, comes faster to your inbox. I know that was taking a while. So we made that kind of update to our process in January. And I actually have to put in a new code in order to get into my administrator account now. And we're in. If you ever want to enable multi-factor authentication, you go up to this little icon on the top right and click Profile. And you can choose whether or not you receive the code via email or through an app. Or if you're kind of over it for a little bit and you want to disable it, you can also click Disabled, and then it will ask you again in 2 weeks if you wanted to re-enable it. Okay, so let's move on. The next feature that we added was having a search reset and a mass change feature on the event management table. So I'll kind of go over what that means. In the administrator account under events and management, and let's pull up a call here. The event management table is the table that appears when you click on a batch of applications from your events management page. So this is the table here. And as you know, you have different search filters and options to be able to narrow down the results or the list of applications or search for a specific artist. So the thing that we updated most recently here was after, putting in a couple filters, you might want to remove the search criteria. So let's say I kind of search for myself. And I brought up those results. This reset button is what's new. So I can click reset and it would clear out those search criteria. If you have a lot of filters that you're using at once, this kind of just makes it easy to clear it all out. The next change we did on this page, which I think is a little bit more of an exciting one, is we changed this function at the bottom here, change all applications to a specific status. For those of you who've been with CaFÉ for a while, you know that this used to just enable you to move status or to change the status of applications from one status to another. For example, if I were to click on not invited, I could change every single artist in the not invited status to, let's just say, back to received. And I could click on received and go back. But now we can actually manipulate this table with different search criteria and filters first, and then make those bulk changes. So it doesn't have to be just from one status to another. It can be not just from one status, but from some criteria. So I can take my 25 applications and received. I can narrow it down to, let's say, 2D art, click search. Now I'm left with 18, and I can take all of these 18 and move it to, let's say, the invited status, just for the sake of demonstration. And so now those 18 are moved to invited. So it just means that you can set some criteria first and then bulk change those statuses. Just be sure if you, let's go back to invited, only 20 will appear on the page by default. So if you were to change this, change all to, let's say, other, you'll see that not all 22 moved, only the 20 that were displayed on the page. So if that's the case, what you'd want to do is just make sure that you view all, and it would change all 22 of those. The last thing we did on this page at the time was make it so that if you set some criteria here, let's put in another batch of things here. That's a bad example. Let's just do that one. So let's say I'm working with a criteria or with a search filter on, and then I'm going through my list here. Previously, if I were to update a status or something like that, and the page would refresh like it did now, you can see on the top here, and the page kind of refreshed to change the status. What would happen previously is that any search parameters that I entered would not hold. It would just kind of clear your search results again, and you would come back to a different list than you were working off of. But now it will hold those criteria so that you can make changes and still work through the same list. It's not going to take you back to the full list or anything like that. This also means that you can click into someone's application, then click the back button to return to the application list. And again, those search criteria would stay, so it doesn't revert you back. So just some minor changes on this page, but I think it does help the workflow when you're organizing applications. It made it a little bit easier with those few little changes we made. The next thing that we did was add the new call request button to the menu of your dashboard. So if you go to the top menu of your page, you'll see we have the request new call button, and you can click on that and it will take you to the form. And so this is the form you fill out anytime you need to add a call to your CaFÉ account. Once you fill this out, our team will be in touch with next steps, letting you know the call has been added. This just used to be a little bit more hidden in the help center. You'd have to go to the help center, click new call, fill out the form, but now it's just more accessible to you. You can just click request new call. And that's pretty straightforward one. The next one we did was add a refunds filter to the income breakdown report. So the income breakdown report is under the reports tab, clicking on income breakdown. This is the report that shows you all the transactions artists have made for your calls. You can set a date range, you can set some filters, choose the call that you want to run the report for. But the new thing we added was this show all refunds filter. So as you know, we can process refunds on your behalf for artists if they, purchased the wrong fee or needed to remove their account or needed to withdraw their application and you wanted to give them a refund. We can help you process those refunds. When we do that, we update CaFÉ, the transaction, to show that it was refunded. And so in the breakdown report, we also made it so that you can only show the refunds for those calls. I don't actually have any refund examples in any of these demo calls here, but if you did just want to search for any refunds that were created for your account, you would set the date range that that refund or transaction took place, click show all refunds, choose the call or all the calls that you are running the report for, and click run report. Obviously, I have no results found, but you can do that. And if you, for example, wanted to see the income that you got for the month prior to anticipate what CaFÉ will remit to you in the next month, all you have to do is set your date range to the month prior. Let's just say August 1st to August 30th or 31st. And in this case, I would want to make sure I remove the refunds because it wouldn't necessarily matter, but I just want to take a look at all the completed transactions without the refunds. And so you would want to make sure you uncheck that. Make sure you do click hide all checks because checks are payments made directly to you, not through CaFÉ. So it wouldn't be included in your remittance. So check that box as well. Choose the call, or I would actually choose every single call that you're running currently because that would, if you have multiple per the month, it would send it all at once. And so you would just click all calls and run the report. Again, I won't have any results for this one, or maybe I do. And then you can see at the bottom the income for the event. So that's a little bit about income breakdown reports. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, if you do have a refund that you'd like to request that we do for you, all you have to do is go to the Help Center. Once you're in the Help Center, scroll a little bit down to refund requests, and then you can fill out this form. It's linked at the top, but it's just scrolling down. It's just right here. The top of this page kind of describes the information that we need from you. Once you click that information, you can fill out this form letting us know the artist information, the transaction information, how much they need to be refunded, and things like that. The form just really makes it easy for us so that when you submit this to us, we can automatically start processing the refund unless we have any questions from you, and then we can process those refunds pretty quickly. So that's the refund form, but you can always email us and ask if you have any questions about refunds. So in July, so this is kind of one of our more recent updates, we made some instructional text and layout changes to the call editor. We did these things to kind of better help administrators like yourselves complete your call and kind of go through it. And we do hope to do more work on this to provide additional resources into these pages to kind of provide, additional advice or instructions for new administrators who aren't used to CaFÉ. But for now, we kind of made some of these basic changes to kind of make things more clear. So a lot of these are going to be kind of small little changes, but I'm going to go through them so you can see everything we did. I'm going to go to the call editor for a call. And let's see here. Close this out. So starting with the event information page, the first thing we did was we added these character counters to the website and the short description fields. These are ones that are limited to a certain number of characters. So we added the counters so that you can easily see how much you have out of the limit left so that you can put in your information correctly. The website field does have a limit of 60 characters. So if you do have a longer URL, I would recommend using a URL shortener to be able to insert your website. But other than that, just put in the website you have and it will let you know if you're over the limit. The next thing we did was add these required labels to all the required fields for every single section. It used to be a little bit more hidden which ones were actually required and which ones were optional. Most of them are required, but we just made it a little bit more clear by adding those labels. The next thing we did is in the application requirements and the eligibility criteria sections. As you know, when you fill out all this information on the event information, and then you go to click, let's say if we click preview call, all this information that you're typing into those fields gets put onto this call details page. This is what the artist sees. It used to be where these application requirements and eligibility criteria weren't really labeled on the event details page. So all of this text you had between the long description and the eligibility would all kind of lump together into one section. So we added headings for the application requirements and the eligibility criteria. So now it displays, your long description first. That's kind of open to anything you need. Then you can outline your application of requirements and then outline your eligibility criteria. So those are just now labeled. The other thing we did on the event information page was add some information to this jury type section. This will tell you what jury type your call is set up for. In CaFÉ, we have 2 types of ways to review entries, scoring by art or scoring by application. What we did was add some of this information on the call itself so that you can compare that you have the correct jury type compared to the other one. So you can kind of review what setting your call is set to and figure out if you need to switch it or not. You can also click to learn more from our help center. And if you do want to make changes, if you do look at this information and say, oh, I don't think my call is at the correct jury type, you can contact CaFÉ and the member of the staff will have to update the jury type for you. So we just added some additional information there. And then the other thing we did, let's see here on the application editor page, you might notice that we switched around the layout a little bit. So we used to have work sample requirements here and then artist statement options here. The submission categories were down below. We've just flipped that so that now it's submission categories on the top right and the artist statement options down below because this kind of better categorized, just kind of basic setup for your call versus building the application itself, in which under application questions, you have both this pre-built artist statement question and then all the custom form questions that you build out individually. So those are just now grouped together. Finally, the last thing we added in this round of updates is the publish call button. If you click that, it has a checklist of everything you need to make sure you've done before you submit your publish request. So this just makes it easier, especially for folks that are new to CaFÉ, to understand what they need to fill out in their call editor before CaFÉ can publish the call. So things like call details, important dates, making sure the artwork sample requirements are set up, making sure all the questions are built out and the entry fees are set up. Those are just those basic things, those basic requirements that have to be complete in order to publish the call. So we just kind of added that reminder there. Same thing as normal though, you just click send publish requests when you're ready for the CaFÉ team to review and publish your call. So those are the updates we made to kind of the instructional text and the setup of the call editor. The next thing we did at the same time was improve the save functionality on the call editor. This allows you to be able to save information without having all required fields filled out first. If you're familiar with the process of getting a brand new call in CaFÉ where every single one of these fields are blank, you know that sometimes you would type in information into one section or one field. Let's say you filled out all the organization details here, and then you moved on to call listing and you were typing out your short description, your long description, but you didn't quite make it to application requirements, for example. When you would go ahead and click Save Section at the very bottom or click Save Call, you would note that because some of these required fields were not filled out yet, the information that you already entered would not save. And the idea at the time was that you wanted to make sure every single thing that was required was filled out. But that didn't really allow you to work in progress and be able to save and leave and come back. So we updated that save functionality so that now if you were to, fill out your long description, but you have your application requirements blank, if you clicked Save Section, your long description and all the information you put in before would all save and you'd be fine and you could leave and come back and continue on. We just kind of changed it to where even though you might have left a couple things blank that were required, you wouldn't be able to publish the call until everything was filled out that was required. But you could at least save your information so that it wouldn't automatically just kind of clear out because you didn't have everything filled in at once. So just making that a little bit more intuitive and allow for a better workflow there. We still do recommend, though, that as you are typing out all of your information, just click Save Call at the top here, or in any of the sections, click Save Section as much as possible, just to ensure that you have that information. Because, if you're typing in any information and before you click save, if you walked away after 30 minutes, CaFÉ would time you out of your session and log you out and not save any of those changes. So you just want to make sure that you click save as much as possible. I have 2 more updates to go through. These are the ones to the artist side. The first is the ability for artists to manage saved payments. So let's go into the artist side. I think I have it here. So when an artist purchases a product on CaFÉ, most likely an entry fee, whenever they pay an entry fee, they can save the payment method, such as their credit card or their PayPal account. They can save that information to use for a future entry fee. What we did was made it so that in the profile section, you could now come here and click on saved payments, and it would have any saved payment information from past purchases here, and they can go ahead and delete that if they don't want it saved into their account. They can edit some of the information, or they can add a payment method to use for the next time. All of this payment information that's being stored is stored securely through our third-party payment processor. So it's all secure, but if anyone has any concerns, they can come in here and edit or delete their payment methods. So that's kind of there. I'll show you, you can just delete and it will go away. So that was pretty simple. Again, this is in the artist profile. The next thing we did for artists was add the ability for artists to modify artwork details without archiving the application. Now, if you're not familiar with using CaFÉ as an artist, you might not be too much aware of this. Maybe you have seen some emails from artists about, having to archive the application. This might explain some of that. So let's go to the portfolio. Previously, anytime an artist would upload an image file, an audio file, or a video file, and then they took that portfolio image and applied to a call for entry with it. They attached it to an application, they sent in the application, and they submitted it. That portfolio file would become attached or committed to that application, and they would not be allowed to make any changes to the portfolio image unless that application first became archived. This made it so that when an artist submits an image, they can't just go in and edit artwork details willy-nilly and have, perhaps a juror on the other end of it seeing different information every time they looked at the image. We made it that way so that, once they submit their image, all that information gets locked and they can't really change it. And that's still the case. But what we did was we made it so that an artist can come in here anytime, even if this, for example, this image is still applied to a call for entry, they can still click modify and they can update any of this information. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to change my title to, modified. Let's say they wanted to change the value or the price on that. They can do that and click save. But then they can get asked if they want to update that for started or ready for submission applications. If so, they can click yes. This would mean that any applications that are not yet submitted can have this updated information with their artwork. Or no would just mean that it just gets saved as a duplicate in their portfolio. But let's just say I went ahead and clicked yes. Now, even though I updated the image for any applications that I have not yet submitted, if there were any applications that were submitted with this image, the original details I made would still be saved with that application. So you can see here, now we have a duplicate. This is the one I modified, and we have the original as well. So it just means that those already submitted applications don't have the information changed. So it just makes it a little bit easier for artists to change artwork information for applications going forward in the future. We also did things like, once they get to this page and they modify it, they can get a timestamp down here of when it was last modified to help them keep track of when they made any changes. So that's an update we made to the artist side, just to kind of make it easier. It kind of also relaxes the ability or the urgency, I would say, for when artists needed to archive their application in order to make changes to their artwork. We used to have it where, and it still is, an application in their My CaFÉ entries page can't get archived until that jury is completed. And you as administrators might know if we ever sent you an email saying, hey, can you make sure your jury settings are complete so that you can, so that an artist can archive those calls. We can now just have the artist update their information without having to archive their application first. That wraps up our latest new features that we've added in the last few months. Final thing that I want to go over today is our list of new features that the CaFÉ team hope to implement in the next year. As with this last list, these might not be the only features and improvements we plan to work on, but are the ones that most pertain to your role as administrators and the ones that are frankly most likely to be added soon. So, and if you're wondering why we're sharing this kind of yearly roadmap now, it's because we work on a fiscal year where the beginning of our year starts in October. So this is everything we hope to accomplish between October of this year into September of next year. So the first thing we hope to add is, not actually we hope to add, this is something we will be adding actually next week. We'll be adding part of the feature and implementing more of it later. But anyway, the first thing we will plan to do is add a manager and general account type with the ability to upload organization and profile information. That's kind of a lot in one, so I'll break this down. So next week, we'll actually be releasing a feature that will split up administrator accounts into two different role types. We've got account managers and general accounts. So right now in CaFÉ, there's only one type of an account for administrators such as yourselves. You log in and you have access to all your call information, reports, things like that. But now we're kind of specifying one account manager for your organization and then up to 4 additional general accounts. Account managers will have access to additional information when this becomes a released feature. They will be able to access a profile, and the profile has both the organization details and the account users details. So the account manager will be able to see the organization details. They'll be able to see and modify your main contact details, see and modify the billing contact. You'll be able to see a list of your contract history. So any contracts that you've had in the past, it will list all of your contract terms and when you've renewed. It will also tell you when your current contract will expire so that you can anticipate its renewal. And then you'll also be able to see the call history. So any account managers will be able to see, instead of just looking at the list in the event management section, this will be a nice, neat little table of all the calls that you've had in the past. The account manager will also be able to see the account users page. This will list all of the administrator accounts for your organization. If you don't already know, you can have up to 5 administrator accounts. That's why I said, it'll soon be 1 account manager and up to 4 additional general accounts, so 5 total. So as the account manager, you'll be able to see all the list of administrator accounts, both currently active and the ones that are deactivated. Like maybe if you had any, previous staff members that no longer work for you, it will be under the deactivated list, but you can see them all. And you can also see the juror accounts. You can see the juror accounts today, but it will be on this new page for seeing all of the account users. So you'll be able to view these accounts, and later in the year, we hope to make it so that you can actually create your own fellow administrator accounts. Again, it would be, a limit up to 5 total, but you'd be able to go in there and make those changes. When we release this feature next week, you would be able to see the account details, but you won't be able to add or remove them. It will kind of come in 2 parts in that sense, but this first step means that account managers will be able to see all of this information that I've listed here. So it's pretty cool. It kind of gives you a little bit more access into the information that we store for you in CaFÉ. When we manage your accounts and your calls, you'll actually be able to see all that information. So when we launched this feature, every organization who currently has, in CaFÉ, every organization has a main contact. That's kind of what is listed here, main contact. That main contact that we currently have for you will become the account manager, but we'll make sure to release information about how to update that account manager role. If, maybe your main contact is outdated and you need someone else to be the account manager, we'll let you know how you can change that in your account so that, the account manager is up to date. So we're really excited about this, and it'll give you more control over your CaFÉ account. So we're looking forward to releasing it. The next new feature we hope to update in the next year is allowing detailed artwork samples or image grouping. This is something we've wanted to do for a very long time. We have been working on it and doing research for the best way to implement this into CaFÉ. What this means is, when you have a call in CaFÉ that's scoring by individual pieces of artwork, you might know that in order for that to work properly in the jury, artists will have to submit only 1 image per artwork. If they submitted multiple images of the same artwork, because of how it works in CaFÉ would split each of those images out into separate applications for their own score to be assigned. And that just doesn't make sense when you're giving 1 score to each piece of artwork. If there's multiple images for that same artwork, you'd be getting multiple scores. So we hope to make it so that you can either, submit a piece of artwork, but then have some sort of like sub image for a detail view, or have multiple detail views, or make it something where, you can group images together so that you can still score by individual artwork, but within each artwork, you can have multiple images just to represent that artwork. Like I said, we're still kind of working on that, but we hope to implement that to make for a better experience when scoring by individual artwork. The next thing we hope to do is improve the slideshow for administrators. This is what I'm talking about here in the event management section. Oops, I have to log back in. In the event management section, if we go into here, and let's say I click on a batch of images, I can click View Slideshow. And this is what the slideshow looks like. It's a little bit odd looking. It's kind of small. You can click and, enlarge the images. We've also been running into some issues where the slideshow wouldn't always appear, but we hope to revamp this page to make it a little bit better, maybe even throw in that zoom feature so that you can have the same kind of access to the image in the zoom as the jurors can. So we just hope to update this page. The next thing we want to do is add multiple media fee options for ranges of work samples. Basically, what this means is that you could set kind of more of a tiered pricing system. So in CaFÉ, let's go to the product editor. As you know, when you go in create your fee setup, you can have, one entry fee and then one additional media fee that would apply to each additional work sample submitted above the minimum. Again, just for context, in this call, let's say we have an entry fee of $30, an additional media fee of $5. The entry fee will apply to any images, will apply to the minimum number of images. If I go back to my application editor, you'll see we have our minimum set to 3. So this means that $30 will apply to those 3 images. Each additional image submitted up to 6 total would be charged $5 each. So that's kind of like the breakdown I'm showing here. But in this setup, it means that the entry fee, $30, in order to apply that to 3 total images as a minimum, that means the artist must submit at least 3 images. They can't submit 2 images or 1 image. They have to submit 3 images in order to, get that $30 to apply. The change we want to make is so that you could set just a base entry fee for, let's say, 1 image, and then have an additional media fee for the second and third image, and then maybe have another media fee to apply for the next range. So you could set up multiple ranges and apply the media fee to, and change, how much you're charging for each, image range. It's a little bit hard to describe in this context without actually having something to show you, but we're hopefully going to make it so that it's pretty easy to work through. You just add your entry fee, tell us how many images that applies to, set up 1 media fee, tell us how many range of images that applies to, and so on and so forth. And keep adding them. So that just would hopefully give you more flexibility and customization for how you charge your entry fees, and hopefully eliminate some of the headaches that are caused by having to have a minimum number of artists in order to get that full entry fee. So that's something we've been actively researching and figuring out what we're going to do to implement that into CaFÉ, and we hope to have that in the next year. We have a couple more for you here. The next is jury and scoring criteria. You may have heard us introduce this idea before, but after spending some time, figuring out how we want to implement this, we have a good idea of what to do. So we hope to release this feature where you could set up a criteria for jurors, or a way for the scoring to be handled. Right now, it's just the juror enters 1 score for the entry, and you might have some background information for how you want the juror to score it. Maybe you say, okay, if it's out of 20, I want you to take in consideration 50% of creativity, 50% of technique, or any breakdown. But you'd have to do that outside of CaFÉ. We hope to add it in the future into CaFÉ, where you can set up a criteria where you have certain percentages of the overall score, or have different criteria that's weighted differently, and that it will calculate the overall score. So this would allow you to kind of set up that criteria and have everything the juror needs to know in CaFÉ. And then finally, we hope to implement the bulk download feature for application documents. This is also one that we hoped to release before, but with prioritization, we just haven't gotten around to it yet. But this is slated for next year. This feature would allow you to download all of the documents uploaded by artists all at once. So as you know, in CaFÉ, you can set up file upload question types. If I click built-in questions, click file upload. So in the application itself, an artist could upload a document, a PDF, or any one of these accepted file types, and it would get added to their application. But unlike the images where we can access the group of images for you, you have to right now go in and individually download any of the actual files that they upload to their application. You have to go in individually. But we hope to make it so that in the future we do have the ability to bulk download all of the additional files that artists upload. This would save you, depending on how you use it, save you a lot of time and effort downloading those files, or maybe also open it up if you don't already use the file upload because of that reason, open up additional options for you to be able to collect, let's say, artist headshots or collect artist resumes and download them all at once. That is something that you would be able to do a little bit more easily. All right, and so that's the list of upcoming new features for CaFÉ. Again, this is a shortened list of all the things that are on our roadmap, but some of them are just a little bit more back end related and might improve your functionality, but doesn't actually provide any new features. So we're going to be making updates that improve your experience with CaFÉ as we do every year. But this is the list of the most exciting features that I wanted to share with you today. And I'll end by saying that if you have any feedback or even suggestions for any of these features, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You're the ones that are actually using CaFÉ, so we always want to hear from you about what can be improved or what more you'd like to see from us. So if you do want to chat with us, just reach out at cafehelp@weststaff.org. It's right there on the screen, and we'd be happy to talk with you. So this concludes our webinar of the past and future new features for CaFÉ. I hope you learned some new things that you can start using for your calls now and are excited about some of the features we hope to add soon. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to join our next webinar next month.